So park that idea for just a minute. Have you ever heard of this, the meeting before the meeting? Okay, are you invited to it? Some of you are, some of you aren't. Okay, so who has never heard of the meeting before the meeting? Okay, one. Okay, so let me give you so this is like, remember I told you the decoder ring for work and getting off the bed and mail donated situations. So there is this, it's a real thing. It's called the meeting before the meeting. In fact, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, Wall Street Journal actually wrote about it, and the subject line of the article was, "Are you invited to the meeting before the meeting?" And I remember reading that article and I found it very interesting because it's true. So what men will do is, let's say that there's, in your world, there's a big project, there's a big initiative, there's a big project, there's a big budget. Before they have the staff meeting or the meeting with the CFO there, the project manager, the engineers, and everybody else, two of the men, typically in power, might go offline and call each other, or IM each other, or get on the phone and go, "Hey George, we're going to that staff meeting tomorrow. You know, I think the budget's this. You might have different numbers or might not agree to those numbers. What's your position on that?" And then the other man will answer what that is. And so they come to agreement and consensus prior to a public display in a meeting. Now, it's really powerful if you're a woman and you're invited to that. In fact, if you get invited to that, they're a little afraid of you. So I'll tell you a story. I didn't know about the meeting before the meeting. I got a call one day, 5 years ago at work. It was, he was a manager. He was an engineering manager, actually. He picked up the phone. He said, "Elizabeth, tomorrow there's a meeting at 2 o'clock. And I wanted to talk about my position and how I haven't hired anybody yet. And I wanted to know, you know, what's your position in that whole meeting? What's your thought on that?" And I thought it was like the oddest question. It was just an odd, to me, I thought the whole thing was odd. And he was friendly enough. He wasn't attacking, I wasn't defensive. And I thought about it before I responded, and I said, "Well, you know, Walt, I have a lot of data that points to you haven't filled the position, and I've shown you many candidates, but you haven't shown that. But I would also in the meeting state there are reasons why these candidates weren't going to work for you. I mean, I would paint the whole picture. But I will tell you, point blank, I will present the data. And it does point to you. But there's a whole other side that I would like to explain on the call as well." And he goes, "Oh, okay, that's great. Talk to you tomorrow." Click. And I was like, that was so weird. And then I got on the call the next day and I presented the data and I said everything and it was just fine. But that was it. That was the meeting before the meeting, right? He knew I held some data. And he was just a little bit like, I don't know how that's going to come winging back at me. And in a public forum, that might not look great, and I've got my boss on that call. But I had no idea what was going on. So the other piece, too, is if you're holding the power and you're holding the data or you're holding something, and they are being, frankly, surrendering to you and asking for mercy and going, "What are you going to do in that meeting?" Share with them. You know, share with them what you're going to do and make sure that it's balanced and you're not going to hurt them or their career. Likewise, if you have a piece of information with an executive, particularly a male, and it could impact them in some way, think about that before you hold on to it. You might want to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I need to talk to you off the record about something. This is what's going on." Now, you don't want it to be gossip necessarily, but if it's data-driven, and this is something that's going to impact them or their project, for instance, you know the project's going to flag over, right? You know the budget's going to go over, and maybe they know this or maybe they don't. But you put, you know, a bug in there going, "Hey, I just want to let you know this is what's going on." If it's data-driven and it's not gossip, you can actually really help them. What happens is then they start to trust you. And then you're not viewed as emotional. Then you're not viewed as somebody that can't get feedback, because when they do have feedback for you, they're going to trust you. And over time, they'll respect you.